Hi, I'm Haven. I'm a physician assistant. Hola, soy Haven, una doctora asistente. And today I just want to come on here and clarify some questions and concerns, especially from Venezuelan patients related to some videos that y'all might have seen earlier this week that I also saw and that initially concerned me very much. Este video está basado en unos videos que salieron en mi feed hace unos días. Creo que todos estamos preocupados porque no entendimos, no sabíamos por qué este comunicado salió y por qué fue dirigido hacia los venezolanos. So we're just going to go through because the Venezuelan Anesthesiology Society, la Sociedad Venezolana de Anestesiología, lanzó un nuevo comunicado, so they released this new statement. And this was 2 days ago, hace 2 días. So, estoy leyendo directamente de su página en Instagram. This is directly from their Instagram if y'all want to find it. However, if you don't speak Spanish, I'm trying to translate some of it for y'all. Pero voy a leer un poco en español también y traducir para los que no hablan en español. So, comunicado informativo de la Sociedad Venezolana de Anestesiología en relación a la susceptibilidad a los anestéticos generales en pacientes de origen venezolano. So, the big title of this is a release, like a press release from the Venezuelan Society of Anesthesiology in relation to the susceptibility of patients of Venezuelan origin to certain anesthetics. It starts off in this first paragraph, and this is tying back to the videos that I mentioned earlier this week. Las redes sociales y los medios de comunicación determinan la narrativa que utiliza buena parte de la comunidad. Muchas veces esta ola de mensajes produce mucha inquietud en la comunidad médica y en la población general. So I love this intro paragraph because right here we're jumping into shutting down the bias and a lot of the pushback that occurred online this week. I think that when these videos came out, and I'm not blaming the anesthesiologist who released these, I think that he was just trying to communicate what he has seen in his line of work. Doesn't mean that that is the gold standard, doesn't mean that every anesthesiologist sees that. I mean, we're talking about an anesthetic that is used worldwide in millions of patients, but he is just sharing personal anecdotes, as a lot of us do with our work. But this first paragraph is kind of calling attention to how personal anecdotes and sharing a certain narrative can be good. In some cases it can be used to share news, but in other cases it can really scare people and it can really set the wrong tone and set the wrong narrative, as we see a lot of times with the news. Entonces en ese primer párrafo ellos están tranquilizando a todos, nos están informando que eso fue algo que salió en las redes, que si tú ves una narrativa, tú quieres seguir esa narrativa, pero algunas veces esas narrativas, aunque salen de la boca de alguien que tiene conocimiento médico, pueden llevarnos por un camino de mucho temor sin estar basados en evidencia científica. Pero cuando una sociedad lanza un comunicado así, eso lo tomamos como ciencia y eso lo tomamos como la verdad. Por eso fue que muchos se asustaron. Y es entendible. But the next paragraph is, what do we know about this problem? ¿Qué sabemos de este problema? So the first cases, there were 6 of them in 2025 that were recognized in Chile, and these were all in pediatric patients. They were undergoing elective surgery. They were healthy patients who didn't have any prior medical complications. And they woke up with neurologic compromise or didn't wake up at all, so that's very concerning. So then afterwards, the Anesthesiology Society in Spain wanted to kind of start looking into this. So you have the cases that they were able to pull together a cohort. They found the 6 from Chile, 1 in Guyana, 2 in the US, 2 in Germany, and 3 in Spain. Then what we saw last week was the American side of this, where the American Society of Anesthesiologists and the Pediatric Anesthesiology Society, sorry if I'm not saying the exact name right, published their own releases, and then there was more of an alert from clinicians at this point. That's when anesthesiologists started responding to this release and sharing their own kind of evidence and anecdotes. That's kind of where things took off, I guess you could say. So basically what they were saying is, without giving an exact number according to the SVA, that they did confirm that there were additional cases in Europe and the United States. And they were, however, highlighting that this information is limited as of now. We don't have enough clinical studies to know how widespread this is. But because of the wildfire and how quickly it spread on social media, it made it look like a much bigger thing. Okay, so what about in Venezuela? Because a lot of Venezuelans were commenting on that initial post, and they were like, yeah, this isn't a thing. We haven't heard about this in Venezuela. I don't know anyone who's had complications. ¿Qué tal en Venezuela? Porque muchos venezolanos al principio dejaban comentarios en ese video del anestesiólogo diciendo, oye, esto no existe en Venezuela, no sabemos de qué estás hablando. De hecho, muchos doctores también comentaban, muchos anestesiólogos venezolanos comentaban diciendo, oye, yo he sido anestesiólogo por más de 10 años, más de 20 años, nunca he visto una complicación así. Okay, so from there we kind of know, we heard from Venezuelan doctors themselves in the comments, and they were saying like, yo, I've been practicing for years and this is not a thing. So that was kind of the anecdotes on the other side of the aisle reassuring and being like, yeah, what about in actual Venezuela though, where this mutation is supposedly from? So the SVA, this is their statement on that. So en comunicado de 2025, la SVA informó que no había casos formalmente documentados ni reportados. Okay. Algunos especialistas en comunicados personales conocen de pacientes con desenlaces semejantes, y un trabajo de investigación presentado como potencia magistral en el Congreso Venezolano de Anestesiología en noviembre de 2025, los autores presentaron una serie de 8 pacientes, de los cuales 5 fueron operados en Venezuela desde 2003 hasta 2025. Basically, this next paragraph is saying that in November of last year, there was like an investigational work that was brought before the Venezuelan Congress of Anesthesiologists, and they had 8 patients in that work. 5 of them were operated in Venezuela. This was from 2003 to 2025. So like, keep in mind, this must be a pretty rare mutation for it to be over a 20-year span, and they have only found in this one report that they're putting together 8 patients. That's normally how investigations start, is doctors start to notice something anecdotally, they pick up on that, and then they're like, okay, let's investigate this. So they're bringing together the evidence. You have to have multiple cases in order to start investigating, okay? And then in the next paragraph, sabemos la causa de esta situación. Do we know what the cause is? So they had identified this mutation in that specific casework that they were bringing before the Congress. And they say that it's this mitochondrial mutation, and it causes instability and like malformation of a mitochondrial protein that's important for the production of energy, of course in cells that consume a lot of energy, like the CNS. The disease state is only being expressed when they're under the stressor, okay? So when they're under the stressor, the mutation is not able to keep up and the cells are not able to continue forming energy, so that's when this really comes out. So interesting enough, they actually stated here that the specific anesthetic is sevoflurane, sevoflurano, and when they were given this anesthetic, people with this mutation, it caused a 90% decrease in the oxygen consumption of the affected cells. That's crazy, because you need oxygen to run the electron transport chain, if you remember from bio, like 101. That is actually insane, and it's immediate. Like, this is not happening slowly. They say that propofol can also affect the bioenergetics of the mitochondria, but the paths that it uses to do that are not directly and destructively interacting with this specific biological mutation in structural protein. And they did a lab study on cells with this mutation. They exposed them to sevoflurane, and they found that it was lethal in the mutant cells, whereas they exposed them to propofol, and it was basically benign. And then in the next paragraph, they go on to explain how is this specific gene inherited. So you need to have a little bit of basic background bio to understand this, but la herencia del ADN mitocondrial es por vía materna. So what does that mean? Tenemos 2 tipos de ADN. Hay ADN en las células, en todas las células, y eso es el ADN que nos da el color de nuestro pelo, el color de los ojos, la altura, la inteligencia, pero también hay otro ADN aparte en las células, solo en la mitocondria, okay, dentro de la mitocondria. El ADN mitocondrial viene de una herencia por vía materna, okay, versus el ADN nuclear viene de dos padres, okay? Viene de ambos lados. Mitochondrial DNA is inherited from just your mother, and then like normal nuclear DNA is inherited from both parents. So interestingly enough, if your mom has this mutation, she could pass it on to you, but it's not going to be passed from a father to any of their children, okay? So then they begin talking about the world population here in this next paragraph. En la población general mundial, fuera del linaje de origen venezolano específico, la variante es prácticamente desconocida. So we really don't even know about this genetic variant. Like, it's unheard of outside of, like, if you're considering a worldwide population, unheard of. So thanks to science, we have mapped the mitochondrial DNA, just like we did with nuclear DNA. And in over 250,000 of genetic mitochondrial maps, they have never seen this mutation before. So that's how rare it is. And then also in an additional 250,000 controls from all over the world have not seen the mutation. Esto confirma que no es un polimorfismo común, sino una mutación privada muy específica que no se encuentra circulando en la población general Europa asiática o norteamericana. It is not common, not in Europe, not in Asia, not in North America, because these studies include widespread DNA analysis and they have not identified it in anyone, okay? Incluso dentro de Venezuela, la variante no parece ser omnipresente, lo que dificulta su detección sin una búsqueda dirigida. Okay. La variante no fue hallada en una revisión de 414 individuos venezolanos de la literatura media existente, ni en los 71 controles poblaciones venezolanos analizados específicamente por el equipo investigador. What is that saying? ¿Qué dice aquí? That in Venezuela, it is not omnipresent. So that really makes it harder to find it and do an investigation about it and what are its effects. In a group of 414 individuals who are all Venezuelan, they did a study, didn't find it. Looked in another 71 controls and from like the general population of Venezuelans, and this was specifically like by a team that knew what they were looking for, investigating it, didn't find it. En Venezuela, Estados Unidos, Alemania y España, 5 pudieran trazar su linaje materno directo al estado Carabobo. Okay, so this is interesting. From that original study that was brought forth before the SCA Congress in November, 8 patients, remember, total were in the study, including cases from Venezuela, US, Germany, Spain. 5 of those traced their maternal lineage to Carabobo, which is one of the Venezuelan states. So now they're focused in and they think that they might have a link like, oh, we've got a location, we can go look for this. Okay. And interestingly enough, they actually do have an estimate. Se estima que el halotipo mitocondrial específico que contiene la mutación es 15 veces más común en Carabobo que en el resto de Venezuela. Okay, 15 veces, pero aún no es común, okay? Porque si tú tienes un número muy pequeño, lo multiplicas por 15, aún sales con un número muy pequeño, muy poca gente, okay? They're saying that even though this is uncommon, it is 15 times more common in this particular area of Venezuela, okay? But that doesn't make it a common mutation. That just makes it more common to that population relative to the rest of the country. So they go on to kind of summarize. They say, it's a very infrequent condition. Sevoflurane is, this part is important. El sevoflurano es el anestético inhalado más usado en el mundo debido a su perfil de seguridad y rápida recuperación. Okay. Según los datos presentados en la Organización Mundial de la Salud, OMS, para su inclusión en la lista de medicamentos esenciales, se estima que desde su introducción hasta enero de 2022, casi 1.200 millones han recibido anestesia con sevoflurano a nivel global. Esta cifra de más de 1,000 millones de usos exitosos contrasta la rareza de los eventos adversos graves, lo que subraya que la toxicidad mitocondrial recientemente descubierta es un fenómeno de farmacogenética de muy baja frecuencia. Okay, this part I love because they are saying sevoflurane is one of the safest and most widely used inhaled anesthetics worldwide. Okay, that's coming from the World Health Organization. They're saying that ever since sevoflurane was introduced in January of 2022, almost 1.2 million people worldwide have received anesthesia under sevoflurane. When you have, whether it's a medication, an anesthetic, a vaccine, and you're giving it to a population of millions of people worldwide, you're absolutely going to uncover genetic mutations. That's just a fact. We're not all made the same. I mean, our DNA is so similar, but there are so many places where there can be little tiny mutations. And so it's not surprising to me almost that we have found this mutation, and SVA is basically saying like, hey, this happens, at this level, at this point in time. It's not like this has been there and we've been covering it up for years. This is something that science is just now allowing us to discover, because it's been several millions of cases of patients that have had this extremely safe anesthetic, and out of those several millions, we're now finding the handful, the few who are having the adverse effects. Okay, so it just goes to show that the more widespread something is, the more it is used, the more you find those mutations in cases. Okay, just like the more people that got vaccinated for COVID, the more adverse effects we found, the more people who were intolerant to the vaccine because of whether it was certain sensitivities or mutations, or certain side effects that occurred in certain groups. Same thing with different medications. You learn that certain people have mutations that to us did not exist before, but after we have enough of a control-based study, we can kind of start to see that. Next paragraph. Is it possible to detect this mutation before a surgery? Es posible detectar esta mutación antes de una cirugía. So because it doesn't have a phenotypic manifestation, which is like looks on the outside, you can't screen based on that. You can't be like, oh, you have red hair, we need to check you for this mutation. So they say here, la pregunta no es solo la nacionalidad del niño, sino de dónde son su madre y su abuela materna. So that's super important, because it's asking like, where is the mom from, where is the grandmother from? So it's not just, are you Venezuelan, which is what the initial announcement that came out said. Okay, if you're going to ask, be thorough. And then they go on to say, la historia clínica tradicional de alergias a la anestesia es insuficiente. Debemos interrogar activamente buscando la expresión clínica de la disfunción mitocondrial en la familia materna, que a menudo es sutil o mal interpretada. So this part right here is important, because you can't just ask, you have any allergies to anesthesia? Like, no, if you've never been under anesthesia, you're not going to know that. Family history is important to ask about, so do make sure that you're asking that. But they're saying that you need to actively interrogate and ask about like any mitochondrial disorders in the mom, maybe any complications. Like you might not have known it was a mitochondrial disorder, but it could have been something that was subtle or malinterpreted. So that needs to be dug into as well. El signo de despertar tardío. Pregunte específicamente, ¿algún familiar por parte de madre tardó mucho en despertar, quedó muy débil o fue a terapia intensiva por precaución después de una cirugía? Este retraso en el despertar suele ser la manifestación clínica de una crisis energética mitocondrial en pacientes que sobrevivieron a la exposición. So there are patients who do survive, actually, this being under the sevoflurane, who have the mutation and wake up, but they wake up late, or they wake up with weakness, or they wake up and they need therapy, like super intense therapy. So this is something to ask for very specifically in certain patients with Venezuelan origin. If you are an American who is now practicing by these guidelines, do you have on your maternal side your mom or your grandma who woke up late from a surgery? Because that is a direct sign of mitochondrial dysfunction, okay? That something went wrong during surgery. Remember, that oxygen requirement is 100%. It was decreased by 90%. So they're going to be waking up very slow because there wasn't much happening in the mitochondria, in the cells, while they were under the anesthetic. That is, if they do wake up, okay? So you want to ask and inquire very specifically about that. Muerte súbita o eventos inexplicables. Interrogue sobre muertes de primos o tíos maternos en la infancia tras procedimientos menores. Aunque los niños afectados suelen ser sanos, fenotipo silente, busque en la madre o hermanos historia de fatiga crónica, dosis, migrañas severas o intolerancia al ejercicio, que pueden surgir una mitocondriopatía. So, next they're talking about unexplainable deaths. So, you want to ask if they've had uncles or cousins on their maternal side who had a sudden death or unexplained event following anesthesia after minor procedures. And in children who are healthy and affected, so they have what's called a silent phenotype, you want to look on the mom side or in siblings for like a history of chronic fatigue, ptosis, so drooping of the eyelids, severe migraines, intolerance to exercise. Those could maybe suggest some sort of like mitochondrial issue. There's no current rapid test to detect this, but they do have lab tests that can look for this specific mutation. So esto es lo que tenemos hasta ahora para investigar esta mutación. No hay un test rápido, una prueba que puede diagnosticar dentro de unos minutos esta mutación, pero esto es lo que hay. Pruebas genéticas confirmatorias. Hay dos métodos, por muestra de sangre o por muestra de saliva. Y también hay unos biomarcadores metabólicos. Estos son como signos indirectos de disfunción mitocondrial. Por ejemplo, el nivel de lactato sérico. Pero eso no es un signo específico porque podemos ver eso en otras enfermedades. Un lactato elevado puede señalar otros problemas. También dicen una relación lactato-piruvato arriba de 20. Puede surgir una alteración mitocondrial. Okay. So right now the genetic tests that we have, there's two kinds. There's blood and there's saliva. They can do PCR or they can do sequencing, which is most specific. And then you also have biomarkers of the metabolism issues in the mitochondria. That is less specific. For example, elevated lactate or elevated lactate to pyruvate ratio. But we see elevation of that in other conditions, other illnesses like sepsis, for example. So they do have something that can also be used during surgery. El monitor de profundidad anestética es algo que se puede usar durante la cirugía para monitorizar al paciente si un cirujano decide seguir con la operación. So, eso es algo intraoperativo. Okay, si no han hecho las pruebas antes. So you would do this monitoring, like deep anesthesia monitoring, and it's like a real-time diagnostic tool that they have. And there will be, let's see, like literally within seconds you will know whether or not they have this mutation. Dentro de segundos prácticamente tú puedes saber si ese paciente tiene la mutación o no, porque la caída de energía en las células es algo que pasa rapidísimo y tiene un efecto inmediato. So, last paragraph, último párrafo, no, hay más, mentira. ¿Qué estamos haciendo desde la Sociedad Venezolana de Anestesiología? So, what is SVA doing about all this? Son tres cosas que van a hacer ellos. El principio es un estudio de zona cero, ¿ok? Para ellos no tiene sentido en hacer un atomizaje de toda la población venezolana, ¿ok? Van a ir directamente al estado Carabobo y ahí van a tratar de hacer más estudios para secuenciar el ADN mitocondrial de esa población, ya que la mutación ahí es 15 veces más común. Eso tiene sentido. No van a buscar en todo el país si ya sabemos que no es algo común. ¿Okay? Y aquí dan la metodología y el objetivo, la justificación, todo eso. So they're going to go to the specific state where this is found. It is not cost or time effective for them to genetically screen all of Venezuelans. Okay? So they're going directly to the source where they have had a 15 times more likely case ratio of this, and they're going to do some more screening in this population specifically, but it is going to be targeted to neonates and peds patients who are having elective surgeries in this specific hospital district, and they're going to compare it with a control group. Okay. Lo que van a hacer es van a buscar casos de niños y neonatos en esta región, en hospitales de Valencia y áreas alrededor, que ellos están programados para cirugía electiva, ¿ok? Y van a secuenciar los genes de esos niños y neonatos y van a comparar ese ADN con ADN de un grupo de control de otra región, por ejemplo, Caracas o Zulia, ¿ok? So this is foundational. They have a control group, they have their study group in the affected population, ¿ok? So this is great. I love the scientific method and the thinking that's going into this. La segunda cosa que van a hacer, creación del Registro Nacional de Despertar Tardío. Eso es algo que va a ayudar mucho a saber empezar a entender y ver patrones en los pacientes que se han despertado tarde de una cirugía, ¿ok? Van a empezar a crear un protocolo y los anestesiólogos o los cirujanos van a reportar, es obligatorio, cualquier paciente pediátrico que presenta retraso inexplicable en el despertar o caída abrupta en el índice biespectral. Eso es de la máquina que los monitoriza durante la cirugía. Con dosis bajas de sevoflurano. ¿Okay? Valor científico. Estos pacientes son los candidatos ideales para el estudio genético confirmatorio, lo que permitirá identificar familias portadoras antes de que ocurra un evento fatal. So what are they going to do to prevent fatal events from happening? They're going to make this national registry, essentially, and they're going to start having clinicians do this obligatory report of any patient, specifically PEDS patients, that wake up late and unexplainably, or if they have this abrupt fall in this index that they're monitoring during the surgery that we were just talking about under small doses of sevoflurane. So give a small dose of sevoflurane. If they have a fall and that represents like a failure in energy in the mitochondria, then they're going to document that, and that's going to allow them to find the root. Eso los va a llevar a buscar la raíz del problema y acabar con un evento fatal antes de que se ocurra. So they'll be able to kind of nip it in the bud before it happens. La tercera cosa, auditoria retrospectiva de casos fríos, neuroimagen, ¿ok? Es probable que existan casos previos no diagnosticados, obvio, etiquetados erróneamente como parálisis cerebral, encefalopatía hipóxica o reacciones idiosincráticas, okay? So it's possible that there are cases out there that are like cold cases where they don't know what actually happened, undiagnosed. They were inappropriately called something else, like cerebral paralysis, encephalopathy due to hypoxia, or like idiopathic reaction to anesthesia. We just don't know what happened. But now they're going to go back and look. Van a sacar datos de los últimos 10 a 15 años y van a hacer una revisión. Y lo que van a solicitar es neuroimágenes, ¿ok? Criterio de búsqueda. Pacientes que ingresaran sanos y quedaran con daño neurológico postoperatorio con el patrón radiológico distintivo, necrosis bilateral de los ganglios basales, cuerpos estriados y lesiones cerebelosas sin evidencia de hipoxia sistémica intraoperatorio. Esto ayudaría a estimar la penetrancia real de la enfermedad en el pasado, ¿ok? Si alguno de estos pacientes vive, podrá realizarse la prueba genética para saber si tiene la variante. Esto es la conexión entre el pasado con los estudios de ADN para saber, ok, ya hemos identificado que esa persona tuvo una complicación después de la cirugía, pero en ese entonces no sabíamos que existía esa mutación. Pero ya hemos identificado el paciente, ya hemos identificado aparte una mutación. Vamos a ahora, si ese paciente sobrevivió, a hacer una prueba genética para ver si eso cuadra, si ese paciente sí tiene esa mutación o tal vez es otra. Okay, so this is the great part about the retrospective study, is that it's going to allow them to look at this neuroimaging. They're specifically looking in patients that came in healthy and after the surgery ended up with neurologic complications with specific radiologic patterns. So they're looking on the neuroimaging for bilateral necrosis of the basal ganglia, and they're also looking for cerebellar lesions. There cannot be any evidence of hypoxia like throughout the body during the operation. Okay, so it just had to be like neurologic complications that occurred post-operatively. And then they're going to take these people, if they lived, if there are any of those cases out there, and they're going to do the genetic test on them. So that is so smart, you know. They had the cases, they have discovered the mutation. Now they're going to go back, review these cases that were undiagnosed, undiscovered, like what truly happened, and see, do they have this mutation? Maybe that's why they were affected. Okay. Esto es la última página, les prometo. So we're finally on the last page. I'm like trying my best to go through this and be so thorough. La cuarta cosa que van a hacer, la última que mencionar, es la estandarización de la análisis genealógica. Perdóname si no lo dije bien. Mientras le llegan los datos genéticos, la SBA debe proponer la modificación inmediata de la ficha de evaluación preanestética nacional para incluir un apartado de riesgo mitocondrial. So, just like we do here in the US, they do pre-op evals, but now they're immediately revising that and they're going to add a separate section that says mitochondrial risk. So this will be on all pre-op evals. The important key is that it's not just about asking about prior events. It's also about focusing on the maternal lineage, specifically mom and grandmother. And then also mentioning, like we said, fatigue, ptosis, sudden infant death, and the maternal lineage, okay? And then if they are from this particular state, Carabobo, it's Carabobo, okay? And they have had family issues in the past that are suggestive of a mitochondrial energy defect or issue, then they should be classified as theoretical mitochondrial risk. And they have this new protocol that they want you to use. You should not use inhaled anesthetics on them, okay? And this is even if you don't have the genetic confirmation, okay? Están lanzando un nuevo protocolo. Si tienen linaje materno de Carabobo junto con antecedentes que ya hablamos, debe ser clasificado como riesgo mitocondrial teórico y manejado bajo protocolo TIVA, ¿ok? No los vas a exponer a anestéticos inhalatorios de una vez, incluso sin la confirmación genética, no van a recibir sevoflurano, ¿ok? Otros anestéticos inhalatorios. Ok, última parte, su conclusión. En resumen, la SBA cuenta con un equipo multidisciplinario y vigilante que prioriza la seguridad anestética basada en la ciencia, actuando como el rector para filtrar, analizar y difundir cualquier novedad crítica sobre esta patología mitocondrial a los anestesiólogos del país. Y aquí tenemos las firmas de todos. Okay, so just to summarize that last part there, in conclusion, they're just saying that they are aware of what's going on. They have been active in the science, looking into the cases that they've already identified, and their number one concern is the safety of patients, okay? And they operate under very strict scientific protocol. They follow epidemiologic data. And then another thing is that they're going to be working with their board. They're also going to be working with different national groups. They're not working alone is something that they want to highlight. So they've got the government, they've got academia, they're doing the genetic investigation that we mentioned, they've got global experts. Specifically, there are some experts. There's one in Spain who's doing a genetic study as well. There's one in the US who's an expert on mitochondrial sensitivity to anesthetics. And there will be coordination throughout Latin America. This is a great announcement. This is, I think, overall very reassuring to anesthesiologists, not just in the US, but worldwide, that this is a rare mutation. This is something that we are actively learning more about, and that as we continue to use this anesthetic and others in millions of people worldwide, you uncover mutations and you uncover people who are intolerant to it. And then once you uncover enough people, you start to do studies. I think that the ASA was quick to act for safety of patients, although labeling the restriction as specifically, or the recommendation as specifically ask Venezuelan patients, I think generated a lot of unnecessary bias and also made Venezuelans in general really scared. And so I just want to keep that in mind and just wanted to go through that so that if anyone watches this in detail, you are more aware of things that are going on, more aware of directly from the source, from the country where this is supposedly taking root from. Another thing that a lot of Venezuelans pointed out is that there is no specific Venezuelan DNA. Like, Venezuela is so culturally diverse, so just know that there is no specific Venezuelan DNA, just like there's no specific American or European DNA. So when we uncover mutations like this, it's really important that we work globally on a connected level as leaders in science to try and uncover more cases, and to try and, if there were past cases that were labeled as undiscovered or idiopathic, maybe we could look into those more and see, are we seeing some sort of pattern, so that ultimately at the end of the day we can get more answers and work as a scientific community for the safety of our patients, because that's what all of our goals are, is the safety of our patients. As that was highlighted in the SVA's announcement, that's also something that the ASA and the Pediatric Anesthesiology Society are all working towards, is we just want to be on high alert, not to scare anyone, not to make anyone think that they have to not undergo a surgery, or that if they're perfectly healthy they shouldn't do this. No, absolutely. If you need a surgery, your doctors will discuss any concerns that you have, and that is why the preoperative Screenings are super important. That is why having honest, open discussion with whoever is doing that and asking you questions is really key. So use that appointment as a time to ask questions. And for those who are conducting the appointments, I hope this announcement helps you to be super thorough, but also to be directed and to make sure that that bias is not specifically towards Venezuelans, but that you are asking more in-depth questions and that you are not just blanket disqualifying Venezuelans from elective surgeries or from receiving sevoflurane and other inhaled anesthetics. You should really truly look into their maternal lineage specifically and history of any family complications, just like you would for anyone else. All right, thank you for listening, and please just let me know if you have any comments or any questions or how I could improve this video to help you all understand better.